Hey, welcome back Social Work Tribe. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NASW Code of Ethics 1.06 Conflicts of Interest. This is part 4 of the breakdown series, so stay tuned. Okay, so let's dive into it. A conflict of interest occurs when a social worker's services to a client is compromised or might be compromised because of decisions or actions in relation to another client, colleague, the actual client you're working with, or some other person. A conflict of interest occurs when a social worker's relationship with a client, this is talking about your professional relationship, that is compromised or might be compromised because of decisions or actions in relation to another client, colleague, the actual client you're working with, or some other person. In short, when you are working with a client, you have a professional relationship with them. As a professional, you're providing your professional services to them. A conflict of interest can be viewed as anything that could impact or influence how you treat and or provide services to the client due to another person. As social workers, we always want to avoid conflict of interest or any potential conflict of interest. A conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest can occur in many different ways. So as a social worker, you always want to be mindful of a potential conflict of interest. Because a conflict of interest can come in many different forms, ask yourself this simple question: will I, the social worker, feel some type of way providing services to a client because of this other person? Or will the client I'm working with possibly feel some type of way because of my or the social worker's connection with this other person? If the answer is not a clear no, then there's a good chance it's a conflict of interest. So remember, this could happen in so many different forms, right? Where we talk about, another person and their relationship to the client in some way, shape, or form. We always want to be mindful of any potential conflict of interest and being able to ask ourselves this question: will we, the social worker as a professional, feel some type of way providing services to them? Or will the client feel some type of way providing services to them when we have this other relationship, or will have another relationship with that other person? Example. So we're going to take it away from the social work element for a minute. Think of a high school teacher that teaches math, and her son will start attending that high school as a freshman. Ethically speaking, the teacher, the mother, would inform the school prior to her son starting school because there is a potential conflict of interest, and the school may place her son in her class. If her son is in her class, it will impact or influence how she will treat that client, which is her son or the student, and or provide services to the client or her son. Wait, Ray, if she's aware, why wouldn't she just treat him the same? Everyone has a natural bias towards life as a whole, which includes how we treat others, and we want to avoid that by not even being in that position in the first place. Let's say her son is struggling in math, and she decides to give him just an extra bit of attention in class to help him get it, like really grasp the material. That's not fair. How about if she sees he's working really hard but still not grasping the material, it fully, or he's a single point away from an A or any grade for that matter. So she decides to bump up his grade just a bit. That's not fair. How about if she's extra hard on him in class, and when she's grading his homework, quizzes, and tests, because she's wants to make sure she's not giving him any special treatment? That's still not fair because now he has it harder in class when the other students don't. So we see how in many different ways a conflict of interest can occur, even if the person, us, the social worker, the professional, is trying not to do that, right? So across the board, we want to avoid just even being in a situation at all if possible. Wait, right? What happens if we didn't know and we find out after the fact, right? Because life happens. How about if we just really didn't know, so we couldn't really avoid a potential conflict of interest? Now we're in this situation because it's like, we didn't see it coming. There's no way we could have known given the context of this specific scenario. What do we do? Great question. The NASW Code of Ethics will know what we should do, so let's dive into it. Okay, so 1.06 conflicts of interest. A, social workers should be alert to and avoid conflicts of interest that interfere with the exercise of professional discretion and impartial judgment. Social workers should inform clients when a real or potential conflict of interest arises and take reasonable steps to resolve the issue in a manner that makes the client's interest primary and protects client's interests to the greatest extent possible. So keeping the client's interest at the top, at the forefront, above all. And in some cases, protecting clients' interests may require termination of the professional relationship with proper referral of the client. So there are going to be some situations where, because of the context of the situation, termination may be required. And we don't want to abandon the client and say, all right, well, can't work with you anymore because of this reason. We want to be able to, of course, talk with the client and proceed with appropriate referral so the client has a continuation of services. So again, if the client has an issue with the relationship because of, let's say, you're dating someone that you didn't know was related to the client because they have different last names or whatever the case may be, and you find out, months and months later or something like that, and let's say the client has an issue with it or you have an issue with it as a social work professional, and you guys might be in the same environment because let's say that person moved and now they're in all of this could happen, right? In your professional judgment, or if it's impacting the client in some way, a termination may be the best route to go with. Of course, appropriate, make sure we're referring them for a continuation of services. And looking at A again, social workers should be alert to and avoid conflicts of interest. Again, if we see it coming, we want to be able to avoid it as much as possible because this is a challenging situation. We don't want to be in this situation. But again, they're situations that we just don't see coming just because of the nature of it. And from there, we want to be able to address it appropriately while keeping in mind our client's interest is at the top and we want to protect them and help them as much as possible. But there are situations where it's just unavoidable because we simply didn't know. And from there, we want to have a discussion with the client and proceed appropriately, taking everything into account. Don't manipulate, don't exploit, right? This one is kind of directly like to the point. Any interest that it can serve you, we want to remember our primary interest is to the client, the well-being of the client. They're at the top. Right? We want to make sure that we're providing professional services to them and making sure that they're getting the most benefit out of the services being provided for them. We shouldn't be getting any business benefit or professional benefit, political, any of those other factors outside of the reasons why we're meeting with the client, which is again to provide that professional services to them. See? Social workers should not engage in dual or multiple relationships with clients or former clients in which there is a risk of exploitation or potential harm to the client. In instances when a dual or multiple relationships are unavoidable, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, social workers should take steps to protect clients and are responsible for setting clear, appropriate, and culturally sensitive boundaries. Dual or multiple relationships, when social workers relate to clients in more than one relationship, whether professional, social, or business. Dual or multiple relationships can occur simultaneously or consecutively. So remember, there could be situations where, let's say, you're friends with someone or you're dating someone, right? And you don't know that they're related or have any type of relationship with a client that you've been seeing, right? And let's say you go to a cookout. And you made a good friend. You go to the cookout, and the client that you've been seeing for the last couple months is there. It's like, what do? We suddenly not friends with this person. We've been friends with them, building rapport, relationship with them for like months now, or dating someone for months now. We suddenly have to just like stop everything type of thing. No, but we also are responsible for setting clear, appropriate boundaries. And we're not necessarily going to tell the friend or the person we're dating like, oh, that's a client I have. Like, absolutely not. But we would want to talk with the client, see how they feel about it and everything. And let's just say they said, oh yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm cool. Like it's no big deal. Like it really isn't a big deal type of thing, right? We are responsible for setting clear, appropriate boundaries, meaning we're not exactly going to be hanging out with that client and be like, oh yeah, they're, part of the family, they're part of the friend group now and everything like that. No. Clear, appropriate boundaries. D, When social workers provide services to two or more people who have a relationship with each other, for example, couples, family members, social workers should clarify with all parties which individuals will be considered clients and the nature of the social worker's professional obligations to the various individuals who are receiving services. Why? Because remember, as professionals, we have a certain obligation to the client. So we want to clarify who is the client, who is the client, who is the client, because how we interact with our client versus other people is going to be different. Social workers who anticipate a conflict of interest among the individuals receiving services or who anticipate having to perform and potentially conflicting roles, for example, when a social worker is asked to testify in a child custody dispute or divorce proceeding involving clients, should clarify their role with the parties involved and take appropriate action to minimize any conflict of interest. So essentially, as social workers, we want to let them know, like, hey, our role is to help you. Like, let's say we're doing couples counseling, right? Our role is to help you achieve whatever the reason why you guys sought services for, right? We're not going to be, trying to get caught in the middle of trying to hear for your side or their side of why they're quote unquote bad and they have all these issues going on or anything like that. We want to clarify, hey, we're out of it, we're here to help you with your goals and everything like that, right? Now let's say we get subpoenaed by like a judge or to appear in court as a result or something like that, right? Like, say it really escalates and everything. What should the social worker do? Seek legal counsel. That is the answer. If us, the social worker, are subpoenaed by like a judge to come in and testify and things of that nature, what we would want to do as the social worker, as the professional, seek legal counsel. Again, that's on like those high levels where, we're getting subpoenaed from a court judge to come in and testify and all of that. But if, someone wants us to testify, like they say in a divorce proceeding or anything like that, we're like, hey, we're clarifying our role. This isn't our role to testify against this person or that person. We're here to help you guys achieve your goal for whatever reason you sought, services for. But we're not trying to get caught up in the middle of any of that. E, social workers should avoid communication with clients using technology such as social networking sites, online chat, email, text messages, telephone, and video for personal or non-work related purposes. Yeah, we're not going to be calling up the client like, oh, did you see the game last night? Yeah. Like, we know that they're a basketball fan or a football fan. It was a really good game. We're like, oh, hey, did you see that? That was a great play. And da-da-da. Boundaries. If we're contacting the client, it's for professional reasons, right? We're not doing it just to see how their day is going, just to tell her about this funny meme or something like that. Professional boundaries. F, social workers should be aware that posting personal information on professional websites or other media might cause boundary confusion, inappropriate dual relationships, or harms to the clients. So be mindful of what's called your digital footprint. Everything we post online can be accessed by, someone. Some eyeballs are going to see it, and, it could be a small world at times, right? So we always want to present ourselves in the best light and being mindful of what we post online, because depending on the type of content we're posting online and how we're being viewed by that content we're posting online, it can be viewed in the not the greatest light by client or others, right? So even though, yes, even what they're saying, our professional website, even our personal, right? Being mindful of what we're kind of putting out there in the world. G, social workers should be aware that personal affiliations may increase the likelihood that clients may discover the social worker's presence on websites, social media, and other forms of technology. Social workers should be aware that involvement in electronic communication with groups based on race, ethnicity, language, sexual orientation, gender, identity, or expression, mental or physical ability, religion, immigration status, and other personal affiliations may affect their ability to work effectively with particular clients. So this is really bringing into account our natural bias, right? And we always want to be able to do that self-reflection with ourselves to make sure that we're providing services in an ethically responsible way where our bias isn't impacting how we're providing services, because we don't want to decrease the quality of services that we're providing. We want to treat every client as an equal regarding the type of services that we provide to them at the highest ability that we're capable of. And you know, again, how we say small world, the internet can make the world seem even smaller at times, because depending on what platforms we're on, like let's say you're on TikTok, it goes viral or something like that, or you're affiliated with, you know, this other entity on social media that has a pretty good following, being mindful of, you know, what do they stand for? You know, what is that reflective of you? You know, do you stand for that, and how you're viewed? So again, being mindful of your digital footprint. And H, social workers should avoid accepting requests from or engaging in personal relationships with clients on social networking sites or other electronic media to prevent boundary confusion, inappropriate dual relationships, or harm to clients. So we may say, like, wait a second, what happens if a client follows me on my business Instagram, Facebook, or, you know, business professional page? That's fine. But, you know, especially if it's like public, right? You know, we're not going to be engaging in direct messaging, DMing them back and forth. Oh yeah, how's it going? It's going fine and stuff. Boundary confusion. It could be appropriate as far as like, hey, just like if they were to DM you and say like, hey, just want to, I see you're doing well, just wanted to give you well wishes, you know, and it's like, okay, cool, but don't reply, because we don't want to create boundary confusion, because now they have access to you if they're DMing you and everything. So avoid it. And especially if a current or a previous client were to send you a friend request, again, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, right? Don't accept it. Don't accept it. You don't want to create that boundary confusion or anything like that, because again, it's opening the door for the possibility of that happening, especially if it's your personal media, because now, and especially if you had it private, because now they're seeing a glimpse into, you know, your world and creating the boundary confusion and all of that. And then how about they start commenting on your pictures and all? It's just avoid it. If it's your professional social media, right? And it's open, it's not private, because, you know, it's your professional, it's public for, you know, to grow your audience and everything like that, and they follow you, cool. But we're not DMing them, and absolutely we're not announcing like, hey, that's a former client followed me or anything like that. So just being mindful of that. Okay, tribe, that's it for today's video. Like always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell a social work friend, because we don't want to be licensed by ourselves. And as always, you got this. Breathe. We're going to tune into the videos, get the information, learn, and be able to apply it so that we're prepared for the exam. Okay, guys, I'll see you next video.